You know that feeling of being sure when you've made the right choice? You've got a decision in front of you, and there's no sense that maybe you've had poor motivations, or maybe you're not seeing all of the information or something like that. But you're sure that you've made the right choice. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That feeling is the way of a fool, according to the Proverbs. This is what Proverbs 12:15 says. The way of fools seem right to them. The way of a fool seems right in their own eyes, but the wise listen to advice. Now, I'll point out that this is not all the time. This is when it's a matter of discernment, when it's a matter of wisdom, when it's a matter of a judgment call. Because there are times where you are right and you should be sure of yourself. You know, if you know the right answer in trivia, then you're right. Don't worry about the fact that you might be a fool. But they're talking about matters that are matters of wisdom or discernment or judgment calls. To be sure of yourself in that circumstance is the way of a fool. Now, think about that. For King Solomon, who, for all the wisdom that he had, there would have been times where he was unsure of himself. Because being sure of yourself is the way of a fool, according to this proverb. The way of a fool seems right in their own eyes. Now, it's no mistake that the Proverbs writer uses the language of in their own eyes, because it's tapping into the language from Genesis 3, when sin entered the world. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and she ate it. It's pointing out that there is something in our eyesight that is poor, our own visibility, to try to see things for ourselves. We don't see them clearly. It's like a mirror it's like your side mirror. Objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear. You're not seeing things clearly. Yesterday, I smashed my side mirror, and so objects in the mirror are even more skewed than normal. We've got poor visibility. And since we've got poor visibility, this proverb invites us to seek the advice of others. The way of a fool seems right in their own eyes, but the wise listen to advice. So are you someone who seeks advice? Are you someone who regularly asks for people's input? When something's wrong in your family or something's wrong with your spouse, do you ask for advice, or are you too proud? When something's wrong in your social circles or in your friendships or even in your job, are you someone who seeks out advice? I think the main thing that stands in the way of our seeking advice is this thing called our ego. We're too proud to seek advice. We think that we know what's best. But the way of the fool seems right in their own eyes. In Proverbs, there's a way that advice should be sought. There's a kind of advice that should be sought. And the quality of advice that should be sought, according to Proverbs, is plenty. That's it, plenty of advice. There's 3 separate Proverbs that point this out. Proverbs 11:14, for the lack of guidance a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Proverbs 15:22, plans fall for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Surely you need guidance to wage a war, and victory is won through many advisors. So we should seek advice rather than thinking that we're right in our own eyes, and we should seek heaps of advice. So let me encourage you to do something. I was reading this week about what makes for good small talk in this book, and something they say is that asking for advice makes for good small talk. This is what it says. People love giving advice. So start your small talk with a request for advice. I want to buy a smartphone or a new book or a new TV or whatever, but I can't decide which one. Most people will happily open up. They'll give you some of their thoughts, and then thank them for the tip, and the other person will feel like they're a fireman who has successfully extinguished a fire. Let me explain the psychology behind this. If you ask for advice, you create intimacy. Intimacy makes rejection difficult. Therefore, if you want to influence someone, it is a good idea to ask that person for advice first. So let's go into the world and be like the wise person who seeks advice. You can even do it in your small talk.